And to be very complex in terms of giving services. I mean, it would have to be.
Yes.
With all of those variables and varieties. I know I have some teacher friends, and this is going back years. They gave up the profession, and part of the reason, I'm thinking of two women in particular, part of the reason they gave it up was because they would see students that they knew had outside problems, would try to give the attention, but the system, you know, at the time, or the principal didn't see it that way. And so what's happening within the school system in that direction? Like, is it more open to?
It doesn't have the capacity. It doesn't have the capacity anymore to be able to meet every individual child's need. So we have, you know, children who, as I say, come to school hungry. We do have breakfast programs in some inner city schools, some targeted schools. Some of those are funded by the provincial government. Some are not. Some are funded by private agencies, non-governmental agencies. But we need far more. We need more than that. We need smaller class sizes, and we need more supports for children with special needs. We need specialist teachers who do not enroll classrooms, who can provide that kind of support. And we need to fund the system adequately so those services can be provided. At this point, that doesn't happen to the extent it used to.
How large is the school sizes now, on average? It's probably not, you know, standard, but on average.
School sizes?
Or
No,
class sizes?
Well, they range. Primary classes are we generally try to keep primary classes low. 23, 24 if we can, 19, 20, 21 for kindergarten. We generally try to keep elementary intermediate classes at 30 or under, and we generally try to keep secondary classes at 30. But that is not the norm. That's not a rule.
Right.
If it was a rule, we would keep them in those ranges. But it's not a rule anymore, and so you have class sizes exceeding. We've had classes of 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. And that's a lot of students. And then when you have within that mix, class composition is probably the more critical element, and that is the makeup of the children within a class. So if you have within that class children who have designated, and there's a system of assessment and then designation of children with more severe learning challenges. So if you have within a class of 38 children with designated special needs, it's untenable educationally. You cannot give the individual attention that you need to those children. Mm-hmm. We used to have the ability to limit the number of children in each of those classes so that you could at least pay attention to their needs. Mm-hmm. At this point, teachers are reporting that they simply cannot attend to every child's needs, and that is hugely problematic.
And so how are parents reacting? Like,
I think parents know that teachers work hard. I think parents are, especially parents in the public education system, are very aware of the value of the system. There's an expectation that it's a good system, that it's one of the best, and there's an expectation that we maintain that quality. We used to be, I would say about 10 years ago again, maybe 12 years ago, arguably one of the best, maybe the very best system in the world. Finland always passes us. Finland always passes us. But we were very close to Finland about 10 to 12 years ago in this province. And we have a far less homogeneous population. We have a broad and diverse population. So I would always say we're number one, or very close to it. I think the minister just recently said that we're number 8 now. So it's been a systematic gutting of the services that we provide kids in this province. I think it's been callous. I think it's been unremediating and relentless. And I don't understand a government that would do that to its public education system.
Now, I want to talk a bit about teachers because I also remember in my past, and it would just, be part of sort of the human thing, is teachers who weren't good teachers and teachers who sometimes were mean and treated students not that well. Do you also have guidelines or some kind of, what's the word, not policing obviously, but to make sure your teachers are doing, and especially under a lot of pressure and stress if they're overworked and stuff, are there avenues to just make sure everybody's okay?
I think so. There's checks, of course. I think
checks and balances.
Yeah, checks and balances. I think that there is, there's always a broad range. I've never ever said that every teacher is a saint. But there are checks and balances, and there is an obligation by the administration, if there's a concern, to do evaluations of teachers. And once an evaluation is triggered, that teacher has, once that evaluation takes place, there's an assessment of the want in the skill level, and then there's an obligation to take on a program to improve yourself and to attend to those needs and change your practice. And if that doesn't happen, then teachers can get fired, and they do.
So are teachers in schools considered, like, what's the difference between a public service and an essential service? Are you considered an essential service?
We are considered an essential. We are designated an essential service under essential service legislation. I don't think we are an essential service. In my view, the definition of an essential service is something that would, result in serious injury or death if it's not
think
provided.
Of hospitals or whatever.
Or police or prison guards. So. So for us, but we are designated an essential service. It's not like if teachers go out on job action, anyone dies, but there is a sense that there's an economic imperative around the provision of public education, I guess, because the strike would inconvenience parents who would have to then find childcare. So we are considered an essential service, which puts a constraint on the kind of strike or lockout that can happen in a dispute. If there's an impasse in negotiations, you have to have you cannot withdraw your services for any length of time or fully.
Do you consider the work teachers do as childcare?
No. I mean, it is. Because it is, but it isn't. It's much more than childcare, obviously. Mm-hmm. It's obviously more than childcare. If it was just childcare, you could hire, 12 or 14 or 15-year-olds, I suppose. No, teachers are highly educated. 25% of teachers have masters. Everyone has a 5-year degree, and then beyond that as well. And so. It's a very teaching children to learn it's not easy. It's not easy. It's a very complex and very very fragile art, as you know.
I've had some very inspiring teachers and totally made it
delicate.
Fun, math fun.
Very delicate, and it requires a high degree of skill, and it requires a high degree of passion and commitment.
And caring.
And
more than just about, I think, the education part, but the whole expansive picture, like you're talking about poverty, or if there's brutality at home or something.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, every teacher has experienced having children in their classroom where you know that something is happening at home, and drug abuse or violence or neglect, and it's very hard to see a child come to school having to face those struggles before they get there.
And I think you've probably had several profound moments in your teaching time or your time, but you also were influenced by a place you were teaching with Aboriginal students.
Oh, I was teaching in Prince Rupert. That's where I first started teaching. And I was told that there was no racism in Prince Rupert. And I had a class. There was 2 grades. I was a grade 7 teacher at the time. I had a class, a grade 7 class, and my friend who also started teaching had the other grade 7 class. And when I first submitted my first term marks to the principal, I was told that I had to tone them down. I couldn't give A's because my class was the class that was streamed and were not deserving of A's. And then I looked at my class and realized that I had much different makeup in my class, many, many more Aboriginal children than the other class. And so that was my first fight.
That's what started
making sure that my first year teaching, making sure that I could give A's to my students. Yeah.
And so that racism must exist now, even. And
racism is pervasive. The one thing that even when we were able to provide a few more services to kids, the one thing that has been true over the decades that I've been teaching is that we do not mitigate for the colonial history of our Aboriginal students. We do not provide successful experiences for Aboriginal children in school. We have to do far more than what we're doing.
I even remember, like, in school, the Aboriginal young people would just disappear. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just disappear.
We are just recently improving graduation rates tiniest bit. But much more has to be done. There has to be much more integration of Aboriginal culture and history into curriculum. They found this stone bowl in Squamish, right, from the 500 BC, AD, 500 AD. This land is Aboriginal territory. It has been occupied for centuries, thousands of years. We have to honor that history.
So we're quickly running out of time. So what is happening now? You aren't going to go into detail, but what is happening now with the BC Teachers Federation and government?
Well, we're still without a contract, still without a collective agreement, and it looks increasingly like the threats that the minister and the premier have been making to legislate I'm not going to call it the collective agreement, the terms and conditions of work. It wouldn't be a collective agreement if it was legislated, are going to come true. I understand from the media, I don't know if this is true, that there's a legislative session on July 16th, 17th, and 18th. And that may be what the Premier and Minister see as an opportunity to do that. And if that happened, that would be the worst case scenario. Absolutely the worst.
And what do you hope happens for teachers and for children?
Well, I would hope that government reversed its position, started to value public education, open up the purse strings, put some of the money back. We're facing another $100 million shortfall next year. We've got reports from around the province of cuts in terms of teachers again. We're probably going to lose 150 more teachers next year. And now we're facing increasing enrollment. Kindergarten enrollments, the echo baby boomers are having kids. And so there is no excuse at all. So I hope that the provincial government opens up the purse strings and adequately funds public education and respects the work that teachers do.
Thank you very much for doing this, Susan.
Thank you. Take care.